Greetings, everyone. This is Hegerherger, and I'm going to be doing a quick tactical look at the defenses that we see at Winterfell in preparation for next week. I have had a love and passion for castles and fortifications since I was very young. One of my life goals actually is to go visit the castles in England. So I really get excited when I get to take a look at stuff like this. Now, I won't be doing a full tactical breakdown like I did with the Field of Fire in this episode. I will be producing that review next week after we get the bulk of the battle and there's something to actually do a comparison and contrast and take a look at how they do the battle. That's not this time. That will be released next week after the episode. So I'm going to start in loose chronological order. The first thing that we see in this scene is where a whole bunch of movable jacks have been built and studded with dragon glass. Now these are, you could almost call them a classic bit of field fortification. They were used in World War II, although not made out of wood, but made out of steel. They were used on the beaches of Normandy. If you have seen Saving Private Ryan, The Longest Day, or played any of the World War II first-person shooters that have Normandy beachhead scenes, you will have seen these will look very familiar to you. These objects can be placed where they will cause the most impediment for movement, and the fact that they have dragon glass jutted in or embedded in them will do some damage to the wights that are clambering on, over, and around them. But these things are not designed to harm combatants. They are meant to impede, to slow them down. Now, looking at them right on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that they are lashed together with ropes, and just about every wight on the field has some sort of bladed weapon, whether that be an axe or a sword or whatnot. So I can imagine that a fair number of these will be hacked to pieces, and that's easy enough just by hacking at the rope, which in real life would take some time to do because that's a good number of strands, but this being TV in Hollywood, one single strike will cause one of these things to fall apart. But these jacks can be moved to specific locations and greatly impede movement across them. A little bit later in that scene, probably maybe about 30 seconds later, we come across Jaime and Tyrion on top of the outer Bailey walls, the outer walls of Winterfell. And as you can see that they have instudded dragon glass on the top of the merlons, which is the part that is sticking up. There's a couple of things when it comes to this. These were hastily put in and were probably put in with mortar. Just as a historical fact, mortar work was not done on castles and other medieval buildings because mortar does not set when it is freezing outside. And there's snow on them, so it's obviously freezing. And even in modern day, having actually poured concrete for construction, you don't like doing that when it's too cold because it affects the cement. Now, I'll give it to them because it does look really cool, but with the dragon glass being on top of the merlons, I'm not exactly sure what it's going to accomplish. The whites will become, when they start climbing over each other in a huge mass of undead bodies, they will be going through the first gaps that they come across, which will be what you see right there in the middle between the two spikes. They'll be coming over there. Why isn't there dragon glass there? So I can see what they're doing, but they're not taking it to the ultimate proper conclusion. So nice idea. They just didn't do enough follow through. After the uh, remainers of the Night's Watch and Wildlings arrive at Winterfell and they're told, you have no more time, you have less than 12 hours before the Night King gets here. Um, you can see in this particular scene, they're doing a rapid deployment from the castle. Um, as it appears to be like a bit of a dry run um, deployment before the battle begins, which even a single practice run will eliminate um, difficulties. Having even just doing things in a military sense, even just doing them once helps immensely. Gets everybody knowing what they're supposed to be doing, how they're getting there, what direction they're going to be facing, where they're going to be standing, and will help immensely. So the fact that they have a practice um, dry run on their deployment uh, is really good. And during this dry run, you see um, some Unsullied here working a counterweight trebuchet for artillery support. Now, it may seem odd that, wait a second, Unsullied, they're not artillerists, they are infantry. But as you can see back here at the Battle of Marine, once upon a time, that they were actually the ones who were manning the catapults that shot the buckets of shackles into Marine to incite the slave revolt. And taking a look at the ammunition here, that's not a smooth rock. That has something added to it. So this may or may not be something that is known in Westeros. We've never seen them use flaming shot in big battles before, but we also have not used a whole lot of. We have not seen a lot of artillery being used in the battles that we have seen. It's all been predominantly just infantry hacking at each other. Um, So I would not be surprised if we see these shot light. Now, um, the fact that they're firing them is good because then they know the ranges to have things predetermined. So if they know that it goes out, we can shoot out to 500 yards. Although with the trebuchet, you're probably going to be going farther. Um, that's when they start that's when they can start unleashing upon the undead when they arrive, which is always good. Any kind of defensive position with artillery of really any type will go through the effort of um, ranging their artillery so they know when to open fire. Now, even if they're just while we know that they do, as I said, we know that they can. Some people could conceivably know how to do flaming shots, and the ones that we see here in Marine also. I didn't take the shot of it, but you can see if you go back, you can see them shattering against the great pyramid. So that means they'll burst apart, have an area of effect, and burn more whites. which is what we're looking for. Now, but even if it's just a solid shot, if they get it so the shot is going out and does not come just straight down and does kind of a headed out, kind of like a cannonball shot, and is skipping across the ground. Okay, rocks themselves are not going to kill the undead. It's just going to shatter legs and slow them down. But more, there's that less undead charging the walls. So that's really good. Now, I'm not sure what these three things are that we see mounted to the upper part of the outer wall at Winterfell. Um, I'm not exactly sure what their purpose is. They're obviously logs studded with dragon glass. So the only thing I can think of is that these will be dropped like from ropes or chains and be used as pendulums to scythe across the front of the wall, taking out whites. I don't see any chains holding them up. I don't really see any attachment points. Um, but there it the a scythe log, a pendulum log, is about the only thing I can think of as to what these things, the purpose of these things. And if that's what they are, well, that will be very cool and very effective. Before this battle, Winterfell didn't have a classical moat like you see in so many other fortifications of the medieval type. So you can see them here digging a trench away from the wall um, in order to allow missile troops and the artillerists to operate with some safety and some protection. Um, they're filling them uh, with wooden stakes. I didn't even in the later ones. I didn't later shots. I didn't see and them studded with dragon glass like we did with the jacks, but they will still very effectively block movement. At that point, the lethality of the spikes themselves is irrelevant. It's the their ability to block movement. Um, they'll work a little bit until the whites start throwing themselves on the spikes and creating um, piles that can be more easily clambered over than trying to negotiate the spikes, but it will still slow them down greatly. Now here you can also see them testing their drop bridge, their collapsing bridge, um, to see if the mechanism works, which is always a good thing. This will allow troops to, um, they will give infantry and cavalry, for that matter, entry points, entry and exit points from behind the trench in order to be able to go out onto the battlefield or come back from the battlefield, and the collapsing nature of it will cause an instant barrier. Now, I'm also going to assume that this trench will be prepped with some sort of like pitch uh, or other flammable substance that will allow them to create an effective barrier. You can also see here that they have more of those pendulum logs on the other side, on the far side of the gatehouse. Now, this drop bridge um, will only really be able to be effectively used if there is to allow troops to retreat back into Winterfell if there is somebody out there blocking running interference for the retreating troops. Because if the whites are right on the backs of retreating troops and the Winterfell defenders are getting pulled down, they really won't be able to effectively use this bridge. And the bridge itself is narrow. It looks like it's only going to allow 2 or 3 men abreast to come across. So it's a narrow access point. Um, so it will need to be, as infantry are retreating over it, it will need to be defended, probably in some sort of defensive phalanx, uh, or shield wall formation that gets collapsed back smaller and smaller as more and more people get across. You pull more and more people from the shield wall, causing it to get smaller and collapse in around on the bridge, allowing for a orderly retreat off of the battlefield if they are literally being pressed by a endless horde of whites. So that this is a very clever idea. I did not get a shot of it, but with that scene with Sam Tarley, Dolores Ed, and John up on the upper walls, probably probably the gatehouse, you see that it does not have the dragon glass embedded in on the Merlons. Now, I'm not sure if that was uh, an oops on the continuity department or a conscious decision of it's too high up to have to worry about. Although putting dragon glass on a very high location like that would still actually have a practical use in that it would um, cause trouble to Viserion to land on it, perch on that parapet, and breathe fire into the Bailey, because it will end up, the dragon glass will cut him up. What that would do to him, I'm not entirely sure, because all the times that we have seen dragon glass used against whites of whatever type have been body blows. We haven't seen it used against glancing shots, blows to the limbs and stuff like that. So I'm not sure exactly what that would do. All in all, from what I see from the fortifications, I like him. I like them. I'm impressed. They show a good deal of planning, a satisfying level of sophistication, and they're obviously influenced by all of the collective knowledge of the various officers. Um, the scythes were obviously used during the battle. The big scythe was used during the battle um, of Castle Black. The flaming shots from the artillery used during the Battle of Marine. Um, Use of dragon glass and movement impeding obstacles. Um, I think they are in a really good position to do maximum amount of damage for the least amount of casualties. But with any of these fortifications, with the vast numbers that the Night King has at his disposal, he can just overwhelm these defenses again and again and again. And it will be interesting to see exactly what happens. I can hardly wait. Anyway, that's all I've got for this time. If you liked what you saw here, give me a like and a share, and I will have my reactions just after the episode when it comes out on Sunday, and then next week I'll be working on the in-depth tactical review of everything about the Battle of Winterfell. Until then, take care.